Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Lui Calibre. Don't get fooled by his squeaky voice, he knows how to survive and how to hit where it pains. He knows how to survive and to hit where it hurts. Only gummy bears can distract him from his objective. Anyone who comes after him is gonna die. A squeaky voice? Gummy bears? Gonna die? I don't know, this has to be one of the weirdest descriptions for me. Anyways, here we have this little adorable creature that turns into this monstrosity of a monster. Just look at him, he looks absolutely powerful. And so everyone is aware, as of the time I'm recording this video, there are currently 21 Earth Legendary monsters. So I'm going to be comparing Lui's stats, skills to the rest of these monsters. So to start things off, Lui has a power of 3,421. And while that is a pretty high power stat, it actually puts him in 11th place. But rest assured, even though he's in 11th place, the power stat itself, 3,421, that is an extremely good power. His life comes in at 32,572. This actually puts him in 7th place, tied with Rockantium. And as for his speed, he has 3,388, which also puts him in 7th place, tied with Deadwolf. As for his trait, he is immune to freeze. Now considering he's an earth monster, you can make the argument that having immune to freeze is useless, because no earth monster can actually freeze you, but I'm actually going to go ahead and say this is an extremely good trait to have. Specifically, obviously, when it's team wars involving an earth and a water monster, because typically when that's the case, your earth monster tends to be the attacker, and the water monster tends to be the deny monster. So in those situations, Lui Calibre becomes the perfect monster to use, because most likely he's not going to be immobilized by the enemy water monster. And I mentioned this in a previous video, it might have been with Taiga, that Social Point is starting to push a lot of monsters that have traits that work against other elements. For example, this earth monster being immune to freeze, Taiga being a light monster immune to freeze. As we begin to get more and more monsters that have immunities to immobilizing skills that are not within their own element, the more dynamic and interesting the game will evolve. So yes, being an earth monster compared to only earth monsters, it would have been nice for him to have immune to stun, but now that we have an earth monster with immune to freeze, he becomes a perfect candidate to use in those specific wars. So anyways, let's talk about skills. Can you give me any money? I run the streets. Those are Lui's default skills, nothing too interesting there. This is my real voice. Deals insane earth damage, gains a 50% shield, and reflects all enemy attacks. Wow, this is an earth-based attack that deals 80 damage to a single enemy monster. But this skill also gives Lui a big shield, and considering he has over 32k life, that's a 16k shield. And on top of that, he's going to get Magic Mirror for 3 full turns. Magic Mirror reflects all enemy attacks for 3 full turns. This is an incredible ultimate attack because of that Magic Mirror, and that becomes a little more obvious when you see his other skills that can give him Protection. Protection basically directs all single target hits at Lui, so if you're using Lui and you get his ultimate attack, it's very possible you're going to have Protection, Magic Mirror, and Big Shield all on you at the same time. That is going to be super powerful. So on to skills group 1, and although I normally don't spend too much time talking about it, I am going to talk about Undercover Kid. Gains a 20% shield, attacker will receive all single target attacks, requires cooldown. So here we have a self skill that costs 27 stamina and has a 1 turn cooldown. So Undercover Kid will give Lui a mini shield, and assuming a base life Lui, that's a mini shield that can take a little over 6,000 hit points. And you also get protection for 2 turns, which will make it so Lui receives all single target attacks. One other great thing about protection, specifically when it's like a team wars involving a common or an uncommon, you know those monsters that tend to die in just 1 hit? Using protection increases the chance of that monster surviving. Now obviously you can't protect them from AoEs, but at least you can protect them from single target hits. So we also have Squeaky and Log and Screech, but those aren't too interesting, so we're going to move on to skills group 2. And here we have Get Off Me Punk. Gains a 50% shield, attacker will reflect all attacks back except physical ones, requires cooldown. So here we have a self skill, costs 27 stamina with a 2 turn cooldown, very similar to his ultimate attack, except his ultimate attack actually deals 80 damage, 80 earth based damage, and his ultimate attack gives Magic Mirror as opposed to Mirror Mirror. And I actually just realized this right now, that Mirror Mirror won't reflect physical attacks, whereas Magic Mirror will, at least according to the description of both skills. But in this case, Get Off Me Punk, the Mirror Mirror only lasts for 1 turn. So an obvious combo you could do is to start the game off with Undercover Kid, get that mini shield and that protection. The mini shield will probably be destroyed by one of the opponent's monster, but on the following turn you'll be able to use Get Off Me Punk. You'll still have protection for 1 more turn, but now you'll also have an added big shield and Mirror Mirror. The next skill we have is Greetings from Los Santos. Deals moderate special damage, 50% chance of dazing and stunning target, requires cooldown. This is a special base skill that deals 40 damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 27 stamina and it has a 1 turn cooldown. And it also gives that 50% chance to stun and daze. Now I really can't recommend this skill. The only argument I can see for actually running the skill, I guess would have to be that it is his only special based attack that deals damage. Now he does have one in skills group 1, but it's only 30 damage and it dazes, so 40 damage is better, especially because this monster does have a pretty high power, but overall I just can't recommend it. Next off we have High Pitched Voice. Deals very heavy earth damage. That is pretty straightforward. It's an earth based attack that deals 60 damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 28 stamina and it has no cooldown. So this is a pretty good skill. If it was special based, it would have been a whole lot better. The fact that it's earth based makes it so when you fight another earth monster, you're not going to be dealing out too much damage, especially if you don't run any strength runes. And with Lui, it's kind of difficult to figure out what kind of runes you want to give him, because you could technically make him an attacker, but at the same time, I feel like he's more of a supportive tank. So we'll talk about that a little more after we discuss skills group 3. GRAN Shield Auto. Attacker will receive all single target attacks and reflect them back except physical ones. Requires cooldown. Another self skill that costs 30 stamina with a 3-turn cooldown. You get Big Shield for 2 turns, Mirror for 1 turn, and you get Protection for 2 turns. So this skill pretty much combines Undercover Kid and Get Off Me Punk to give you this pretty amazing skill. You get that automatic protection and you get Mirror and you get a Big Shield. So now you can actually start off your games with GRAN Shield Auto, get that protection, get that Big Shield, get that Mirror, and even if the enemy monster attacks you, most likely Lui won't lose any health just because of that Big Shield, and he's going to be reflecting whatever attack gets thrown at him. And then on the following turn you'll be able to use Get Off Me Punk, which will pretty much reinstate that Mirror and will reinstate your Big Shield just in case it's worn off or if it's already taken a lot of damage. And then on the following turn you can use Undercover Kid just to keep that protection going so none of your allies get hurt. Talk about taking one for the team. Lui is such a nice monster. We also have Squawker Squad. Deals moderate earth damage, may stun target, requires cooldown. This is an earth based attack that deals 45 damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 28 stamina and it has a 2-turn cooldown. And if you've listened to my other analysis, you'll know by now that I always recommend having an immobilizing skill, because you never know when this can come in handy. This could mean the difference between losing the game and winning the game. Now yes, granted a lot of earth monsters are immune to stun. You'll still most likely be able to use Squawker Squad against the other element monster, or against the third monster if it happens to be like an epic or a rare, a ranked up rare specifically. That's when it could come in handy and save your butt. And his last skill is called I Got This. Deals massive earth damage, requires cooldown. This is an earth based attack that deals 75 damage to a single enemy monster. It costs 28 stamina and it has a 2-turn cooldown. And if you're planning on using Lui as an attacker, this would be a pretty good skill. So now for the more difficult portion of the video, deciding what skills you want to use on this monster. And I say it's difficult because there really isn't a wrong choice, because honestly there are just so many different routes you can go about this. If you want to use Lui as an attacker and you're planning on giving him strength runes, then I recommend going after moves like I Got This, High Pitched Voice, Squawker Squad, and even though he's supposed to be an attacker, you'd probably also want to get GRAN Shield Auto. Now the downside to GRAN Shield Auto is that it deals no initial damage, so this monster can have the absolute best strength runes on him, but when you use GRAN Shield Auto, you're not going to benefit from any of those runes. And the same can be said for Get Off Me Punk, which is another skill you might want to consider even on an offensive build. Fortunately though, because of Mirror, the fact that you're going to be reflecting the attack, that's when the strength runes are going to kick in. So I guess you can say the strength runes don't completely go to waste. So my recommended offensive build would actually have to be GRAN Shield Auto, Get Off Me Punk, Squawker Squad, and then it's up to you to decide between High Pitched Voice and I Got This. And I think I personally would gravitate more towards I Got This. And for runes, I would just recommend the typical attacker rune set, 2 strength runes and a speed rune. And if we want to change gears a little bit and go on a completely defensive route, I would recommend Undercover Kid, Get Off Me Punk, GRAN Shield Auto, and Squeaker Squad. And I say this skill set is completely defensive because you're really relying on that protection to protect your monsters from taking any damage, and you have Squawker Squad for whenever you need to immobilize with stun. And a very simple slight modification can be made if you don't want to go the completely defensive route and you want to give them a little bit of offense while at the same time still being defensive. Run GRAN Shield Auto, Get Off Me Punk, Squawker Squad, and High Pitched Voice. And the only reason I'm leaning towards High Pitched Voice as opposed to I Got This is just because of that 0-turn cooldown. Lui just needs to be available. If you need him to hit hard and you already used I Got This, you're not going to be able to use that skill for 2 turns. So I think it's a little better to run High Pitched Voice. And for this skill set, I'd probably consider giving Lui 1 speed rune, 1 strength rune, and 1 team speed rune. If you want to substitute a life rune for that team speed, you can do that. However, I do think that Lui's shields should be enough to get him through the whole game. So yeah, at the end of the day, the choice is yours. Oh, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but on the completely defensive skill set, you would want to give him all speed runes, and the whole idea is that you use protection right off the bat to try to protect your monsters. So anyways, with all that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis on Lui Calibre. Please let me know what you thought about this analysis, and more importantly, please let me know what skill set you would run on this monster, because there are really so many different viable options. Also be sure to let me know, how do you think this monster compares to the other earth monsters? What do you think about his trait being immune to freeze and not being something like immune to stun? Whatever thoughts are going on through your head, let me know in the comments below. Also be sure to let me know what monsters you want to see analyzed next, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.